girl, welcome to my channel. So today I want to talk about something that is pretty like thrown around all the time, and a lot of us are like, what the fuck, that's not okay to label us that. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard the term white privilege, and like, I just want to, let's just get this straight. White privilege doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's basically racist against white people, and you can only have white privilege if you're fucking like rich and living a dope life. Like, loads of white people are in poverty. Loads of white people are like orphaned and have suffered trauma and are like in shitty situations. Like, they don't have white privilege, right? Wrong. Really, really, really wrong. So here's the thing. White privilege doesn't mean that you've had it easy. It doesn't mean that your life has been super smooth. It doesn't mean that you didn't experience trauma. All it does mean is that whatever you did experience would have been more difficult, at least in some ways, at least a little bit, maybe a lot, if you weren't white. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story and how I grew up so you can understand what I mean by, yes, we have white privilege. So basically, I grew up in Australia, in Western Australia, and when I was 7, my dad killed himself. He suffered from mental illness. And when I was 13, my mum got cancer and died very shortly after that. And I watched her disintegrate from the woman that I know into this like weird sick lady that everyone was like worried about, and people were really angry to me. It was just very confusing, and it was awful. Like, watching your mum die is one of the most horrific things you can think of, right? Right. And then shortly after that, the family that I did have that was like legally supposed to take care of me basically just said, we don't want to take care of her, because I was starting to have like hysterical panic attacks and fits, and I was just like losing my shit. I wonder why, you know, and I was met with a lot of aggression from the people in my family. You know, I was physically, not like abused, but I was physically reprimanded for things that really I should have been shown compassion with. You know, I wasn't going to school because I was being bullied so severely. I'd rather like skip school and risk getting, you know, smacked around by my uncle. I remember my mum used to be the one to stick up for me all the time, because they'd kind of have a little bit of a go at me at family events and make me feel really bad, and she'd always be there sticking up for me. And then when she died, like, I literally had nothing. I just felt like, you're one person on the earth, hi, you know, good luck kind of thing. It was like the loneliest feeling I can't even describe it, you know. And so they basically like gave up guardianship of me. They didn't want to deal with me. And then I lived in a psychiatric ward of a hospital, and then I bounced around from hospitals, psychiatric wards, to hostels. And I like, the first hostel I was put in when I was 13 was one of the roughest hostels in the state. I was scared to go to that part of the city when I was young. At about 15, I was living in a semi-permanent foster home, and I started taking drugs regularly, and I became a drug addict within that year. By the time I was 16, I was living in a youth hostel that had no guardianship, so I was 100% on my own, and I was a full-blown drug addict. And I'm talking about the bad drugs, the drugs that people die from and you never see them again. The bad shit. At that point in time, my legal guardian was the state of Western Australia. Yes, so the government of my state in my country was my legal guardian. If I thought it couldn't get any lonelier, that was when it did. Basically, I went through the next years just being a completely lost cause. I remember people didn't see me for like a year and a half, and when I kind of came back, when they saw me again, they were like, oh my God, it's you. We kind of assumed you know, died. Because that's what happens to really heavy drug addicts that are using those kind of drugs. They don't really just come out of it and they're okay. If you don't see them for a while, they're either in jail or they're dead. So that's my story, and that's pretty shit, right? Like, that doesn't really sound like I had much white privilege in that, because I got bounced around the system. I got, you know, abused in some ways, not the most severe that I've heard of, but like, let's be real. This was just the life that I lived. Like, that doesn't sound like I was very fucking privileged. Well, I was. And I'll explain why. Because as bad as all of that was, and as like not a great situation as that was, Imagine if I had have been an Aboriginal girl. Being Aboriginal in Australia can be likened to being black in America, being black or Native American, and the situation can be pretty bad for Aboriginal kids in Australia. They have a lot of prejudice against them. I was prejudiced against them. I was scared of them, and that created a prejudice when I was young because I was really, you know, ignorant to like what the whole situation was with that. Now, if I had have gone through all of that, if I had have been a ward of the state, if I had have been like this lone little girl who other people had to make decisions on where I was placed, it would have been extremely different if I had have been an Aboriginal girl. Even on the simplest level of they might not have chosen to put me in the foster care that I went in. I was in like a foster care house at like, it was like a Christian kind of complex that had all different houses that were like foster care houses. It was only temporary, it wasn't like legit foster care. There were no Aboriginal kids on that whole complex, like at all. I knew people in the other houses. There was no Aboriginal kids. When I first went to that rough hostel, the first one I went to, there was Aboriginal kids there because it was like in this rough area and da da da. You know, perhaps if I got in trouble by the police, which I did regularly, they wouldn't have been so quick to just write it off as a warning because I was really young. You know, I remember I got stopped by police once in an alleyway and they were like, do you have anything in your bag? And I was like, yes, but there's no drugs left in them. It's just all stuff like paraphernalia that has been used and there's nothing left in there. And it was pretty hardcore paraphernalia. And I'm pretty sure that if I had been Aboriginal, they probably would have taken me in. You know, they just kind of let me go and they like checked my bag and they're like, okay, no worries, you know, and just let me go on my way. And I don't know if that would have happened if I had been Aboriginal. Like that shit is just like that. It's so technical. There's so many fucking layers to systematic racism and racial bias. Like there just is. This is only because that's how our system is set up. It's not your fault. You can't help that any more than you can help that you woke up and you were like a white person. And if you don't think that there is, it's probably because you've never had to deal with it. Like I never used to even think about racism or racial bias or getting treated differently because I didn't need to. Like that just wasn't in my life. The fact that you don't notice that you have white privilege, that's the privilege. Like you don't have to think about that. And it's not about feeling guilty for being white. It's not about feeling, you know, shameful for being white. It's not even about apologizing for being white. I can't help being white any more than my friend can help being black or Chinese, you know, like it's just, we just wake up in whatever skin we're in and then learn what that means and then learn to deal with it. Admitting that you have white privilege doesn't mean that you're a racist person because you're white. It just means that you're acknowledging something that is there that happens to affect other people worse than you. I know for a fact that what I went through was like not very fun and considered traumatic, and it was very traumatic for me, and it really shaped me in who I am today because I had to go through some shit, you know. But I know 100% if I had have been Aboriginal, that would have been significantly harder, at least somewhat harder, if only in terms of where I was placed by the system. It doesn't make you a bad person for being white. You don't have to apologize for your skin color. None of us should have to. Like we can't, as I said, we can't help how we wake up. Like this is just it. What we can do is be aware of these things and talk about these things and be compassionate when it comes to these things. I can never fully understand what it's like for an Aboriginal girl or a black man, what it's like for them in their reality, in their world. I can never understand, but I can try to empathize. Just like someone who has never lost their mother can never fully understand what it was like and is like for me, but you can try to empathize. There's nothing wrong with admitting this. It doesn't mean that you're admitting that you're a bad person, because you're not. If you can admit and acknowledge that there are these privileges, that makes you a pretty awesome person. I see all of these things going on right now, like white privilege, rape culture, homophobia, you know, sexism, all these things that are actual issues, like actual issues that people really face. And people get really aggressive about it and they just want to fight over the fact. Like here's something that exists and it oppresses people. Rather than trying to fix this system that oppresses certain people, people are arguing whether there is even oppression at all. Like, people are arguing whether the oppression even exists, and this is just like going around in a circle, and it helps no one. It doesn't help us get any closer together as people. It doesn't help the people that are being oppressed at all. It actually is super detrimental. If I get defensive about the fact that I might have certain things easier than someone else based on my skin color, what are my real intentions there? Like, why can't I just admit that, yeah, some shit is easier for me? So the point of this video is just to tell you guys my story and what I went through, because it wasn't very easy and it was really traumatic. And hopefully you can understand that even though I went through some shit, it would have been a little bit harder, at least, had I been Aboriginal or black or not a white Australian. So I hope you guys like this video. This is something that is really, really important to me, and it might not have been a very like funny video, but it's something I feel really, really passionately about. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Do you have a similar experience? Do you have a similar views? Do you have opposing views? Like, let's get discussing. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, you can do that. I have new videos coming out all the time, and they range from all different kinds of things, as you'll notice on my channel. So easiest way to keep up is hit subscribe. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me talk about a really important issue.